Hey everyone, Irene Lyon here. I have a interview for you today. It is a little different in that I am being interviewed by another host. This was a talk that originally released on Ryan Evans's channel. We'll link all his stuff below. He is in the same field as me in terms of somatic trauma healing, building capacity in the body, nervous system regulation. And we had a chat earlier this year. It would have been July of 2025. First time we met, and I really enjoyed the conversation. So I wanted to share it with you here today in case you haven't seen this talk. I also wanted to share it for two other reasons. One, a lot of you have said that you enjoy long form content. So here is one of those interviews. It's about an hour and 30 minutes long. And if you're new here, this is a great one to watch and take in because I go through, we go through, he asks me questions on my journey, how I got into this work, some of the elements that make what I do a little more unique, namely due to the Feldenkrais method that I blend in to my somatic trauma healing. We get into functional freeze, plant medicine, the SE training that I went through that sort of blew me out of the water originally and put me on my healing path. So there's a lot of good stuff in here. I've added the timestamps below this video so you can check out what we talk about. And if you have any questions or comments about what you hear in this video, what you listen to, let us know. My team will get back to you. And be sure to follow Ryan and check out his stuff. He's doing good work out there. That's everything for me today. Enjoy the conversation, and we will see you next time.
Welcome, Irene Lyon. How are you today?
I'm good, Ryan Evans. How are you?
I really wanted to start because it's actually really surreal because I started doing this because I was like, I want to talk to so many people that I'm interested in hearing.
Yeah.
And I've been watching your stuff on YouTube for years.
Wow.
Like years I've been watching your stuff. And I feel like you were doing this stuff before the word nervous system and somatic and that stuff became a popular buzzword, right? So it's just, I don't know, it's just surreal. So I'm really, really chuffed and really excited to just chat to you today.
Thank you. Yeah, I started this when I didn't have gray hair, so, or silver as they call it.
Yeah.
So it was, it's funny you say that because when I first started really showcasing this work, I had a business coach who said, don't put the word nervous system on your site. This was about 2013. And I was like, no, I think I should put it on because that's what I do. And she was completely open and respecting to my, my hard no. And now I almost don't feel like it's enough to say I work with the nervous system because everybody's saying that, right?
Do you think it dilutes it a little bit? Do you think it can sometimes dilute the work and dilute the people that have been working in this field for such a long time? Where there's now you can do a nervous system course in a day online, and you're now a nervous system coach, and it's not. I don't know. It's something about it feels a bit off with that, but yeah.
You're right. I mean, I'll still use that word because that's what I work with. But I'm finding that I'm trying to be more specific, which isn't always easy because then you add specificity and then it gets really jargony. And then people kind of tune out because you start using words like peripheral nervous system. You start using words like sensory motor, like high tone dorsal of the parasympathetic, low tone dorsal of the parasympathetic, the SA node with the ventral vagal and the myelination. And this is non-myelinated and neuroplastic healing. It's like somatic, what you don't believe in somatic. Well, I kind of do, but this is what you have to understand. And so, I mean, I take it on as a challenge. And then there's my predecessors, whom some are still alive, where I can't even imagine what they're thinking.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But, I take it and then I try to explain as much as I can what I mean. But, I was thinking the other day, most people, if you were to say at Wimbledon, is it grass or clay? People know grass. If you were to say French Open, grass or clay, people know clay. Now, I use that as a strange comparison because people know that more than if I was to say, what are the two branches of your autonomic nervous system? So it's still a real new science in terms of like healing in the popular press, but I always compare it to medicine. I don't know if you've ever heard me make this comparison, but I mean, I don't know how long, but it's been thousands and thousands of years that people are performing surgery. And when they first started doing surgery on humans, I can guarantee you it wasn't that great. And there was probably a lot of bad things that occurred, a lot of experimentation. What's this? There wasn't a name for it. And so if I think about where we are, and by we I say myself and the colleagues of mine that we're called the New Traumatology. There's Levine, Rob Scare, he's passed, Cecil Porges, he's not a clinician, but still he's part of that tribe. Mate, Dick Schwartz, Pat Ogden, Kathy Kane, Stephen Terrell, like all the people that I've kind of have on my bookshelves, for example. They're like the first people that started writing about surgical technique. Like, it's so new. And this is the part that I think we don't understand, because when surgery was around, we didn't have social media to make little Instagram clips to show people how to do like sutures. Or, oh, it's just an appendectomy, just do it. It doesn't, you'd be like, well, of course, Irene, don't be stupid. This isn't like that. This isn't surgery. However, you probably know from your work, if you do one thing that's slightly off, it could put a person into psychosis, into an autoimmune flare. They could kill themselves, just being honest. So it is like surgery, but it's also a little more, I think, tricky because there aren't these parameters where we do surgery in a medical clinic, in a hospital, right? And I always use surgery because there's some aspects of medicine that are just not good. But orthopedic surgery, plastic surgery for burn victims, internal surgery when there's a crush injury, these are all very important. And they've really been created and agreed upon globally for the most part. Some hospitals aren't going to be as good as others, but most surgeons who are, say, orthopedics, they know basics of how to set a bone, how to repair a ligament, all these things. And so right now in this somatic nervous system world, there is zero accreditation to say you are what are we? We're not just somatic practitioners. Peter would not call himself that, for example. I don't think we really have a name. And so I think we're just in this really interesting embryonic stage, and everybody thinks they know the one thing, but right now it's like we're those medical surgeons who are testing things all across, but at that point you eventually have to come together and collaborate and make the textbook, the first medical textbook on how to do surgery. And at this point, I'm going to be really honest, like I know the back end of what goes on in a lot of these trainings, conferences. I hear things, I know things because I know a lot of people, and it's like not everybody's getting along and not everybody respects the other person. Doesn't mean you have to agree. So we're at this weird, it's like place where I think it's pushing through, but there's going to have to be some shit that falls down. And then other stuff has to push forward. And I think the stuff that pushes forward and survives will become that first textbook that is like, this is this practice where we use the nervous system and movement and, all the things that I know and my colleagues know and as well. So I don't know if I'm making sense there, but you have to really look, I think, macro with where we are currently in this new system of working with humans that is non-medical, and yet it still gets pigeonholed into that. And that's another reason why I think we're struggling, is we can't diagnose something and say, I'm going to write you a script, this is exactly what you do, right? That works for some things, but even any good doctor will know, I go in to fix this thing, but I also have to know this goes wrong, I do this, if that happens, I do this. And that again comes back to rigorous training. And the somatic nervous system world, the training are not rigorous. They're not rigorous, right? And that's something that I'm in the midst of trying to course correct right now.
Yeah, I mean, really, these trainings are. If we take the word training out and we think of this from an evolutionary perspective, if you had a healer in a tribe, right?
Mhm.
These would be ancestral. Like
Yes.
they would be taught this by the people before them, and it would be passed down over years and years and years and years. And then they would be the people in the group that you would go to when you had, and they knew the field, they knew it, they were brought up on it, they were raised on it. There's a differences in it, and I think that's something that I know I've lost in my part of my culture. It's like there isn't much of that there. But before we go any deeper there, because we could just go off on a completely
Of
different
course we
way.
could. Yeah.
Um, can you tell everyone a little bit about you, a little bit about yourself, a little bit about how we were just talking that you was in Wollongong studying a
Mhm.
completely different field.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah. Well, it's worth it to say I was raised in a medical environment. That goes with what you just said. I was apprenticed from a very young age. My parents are both veterinarians. So I literally grew up in an animal hospital, like no word of a lie. It was in our house at the beginning, and then it was in a practice. I think some of my, not anymore, but my traumas around being in enclosed spaces was from me being put in kennels as a baby, because that was the safest place to put me. When my parents had to do an emergency, C-section at 3 in the morning, no babysitter, no nanny. It's like, well, just put her in here because it's the safest place for her, and I'm not mad at them anymore, but I definitely, that comes at a cost to a certain degree, but it's okay, mom and dad. So there was that. I got into working with humans because I injured myself ski racing. So I busted a key ligament in my knee, had orthopedic surgery. This is why I always use orthopedic surgery as an example, because it really is a very precise medical profession. That just amazed me. So I went to study, we call it kinesiology here. It's a bit different in Australia, but it's exercise science. And I loved it, thinking I wanted to become an orthopedic surgeon. So I thought that was going to be my pre-med degree. Turned out wasn't for me. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to pass the MCAT because I don't have the brain to memorize all these things and regurgitate. I could do it, but it was painful. And then I got really interested in fitness, exercise science, but also oddly a cell membrane physiology. So I was really interested in like what's called the biophospholipid layer of the cell and how we need a good balance of omega-6 and 3 in our cell to make proper cell function happen. Now, the reason I was interested in that is I was born with a lot of inflammation in my body. I experienced a severe in utero trauma due to chemicals. Um, and so I was born like one rash and inflamed. And so I kind of had this healing crisis journey, whatever you want to call it, up until only about 15 years ago, where I'm trying to figure out this inflammation. And as we know, the cell and having healthy cell membrane structure is very important. So that actually led me to Australia to study cell membrane physiology and fish oils. But I got there, and the professor that had agreed to take me on as his grad student wasn't the best guy. I now realize the reason they wanted me was because he had no grad students but one. And that's a bad sign when you're in a university if a professor has no grad students. So I had to kind of swallow my pride of wanting to be this like biophysiology membrane like specialist, because I was trying to get away from fitness and like one-on-one human health. But they're like, well, we can't give you this, but there's this other study where we just got like 100 grand from the Meat and Livestock Association of Australia to study the effects of red meat on skeletal muscle health in either athletes or older adults. And at the time, the Sydney Olympics had just occurred. So all this money had been pushed to athletics. And because of that, the health of the Australian population had declined. True story. Because all this money, and I know like Aussies have been renowned for their sport performance, right? In the Summer Olympics and rugby and all these things. And so they really wanted to study normal people. And so I got 100 grand, a research study that would get me my master's, and I had to recruit subjects, and I did like a full scale research academic study for 18 months. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. It was the best thing I've ever done. And I changed lives of these like 40 older adults from that area, the Illawarra area, who were retired, and they're like, oh, I'll just join a study. It was like radio. I announced it over radio. And then, good old phoning everybody. Like, it was just the classic study. So I did that. It's like a lifetime ago. But at the time, I've left out a very key piece. I'd had more knee surgeries. So I had re-injured the same ACL that was repaired in my teenage years. I had another ACL from playing soccer, football. And then I had a patella fracture, so my kneecap broke in half spontaneously as a result of a complication from the ACL surgery that used the patellar tendon. Yeah. So I went to Australia half kind of rehabbed, like I was about 6 months out, but I was in so much pain. But I was fit. I was strong, I was lean, I was in my mid-20s, but I was in so much pain, and I was going to physical therapy, massage therapy, and then it kind of like dawned on me something's not right when I had to start going to chiropractic. I'm not against chiro, but it was like I had to keep getting adjusted. I'm like, something's not right. So my physical therapist, I still don't remember his name, Dubber, he was like, I've got this colleague up the coast in Thirroul who does physical therapy, but he also does this stuff called Feldenkrais. And I was so desperate, so I literally did the trek to this coastal town, went into this old, it was like a sanitarium mental institution that had been changed into a physical, like literally, it was so spooky. Those types of places with like really high ceilings and just curtains that separate the beds, and he was working there in this old space, and I don't really remember what occurred, but all I know is after about a month of just doing Feldenkrais movements with a cassette tape in my Walkman, and going to see him maybe twice, all my pain was gone. And I was functional, I was strong. I essentially rewired all the faulty patterns from these terrible injuries, 3 massive surgeries, and being on crutches for like
Oh,
a year.
can you share a little bit about what Feldenkrais is as
Yeah,
well, please? I'd really love. I think everyone would find that interesting.
yeah, that's a loaded question, but I can.
Try your best.
No, I just wrote a piece about it. So if I was to say really simply, it's about teaching us how to relearn again. So people think it's about movement, and it is. You use movement as the vehicle, but it's actually about listening to the internal firings of your sensory motor nervous system to course correct and notice when you hold your breath, when the tension, when your eyes lock in a certain position, when does your tongue get stuck on the roof of your mouth? Are you always on one side of your pelvis? Are you always turning in one direction? So the founder, Moshe, he's long passed. Again, this is so interesting to me because he, like Peter Levine, they were not into psychology or psychotherapy. They were into body work and things that were more mechanical. And so Feldenkrais was a mechanical engineer. He was an electric engineer. He worked on like electrical patents and submarines and all these things. And he was also a judo master. He also was studying baby development because his wife was a pediatrician, like all these things, pediatrician. And he injured himself, his knees, oddly, playing soccer, dislocated his knee joint. That in that time, there was no orthopedic surgery to fix that stuff to the degree that today. we could. And so he retaught himself how to walk by laying in bed and feeling firings and mechanical counterbalancing movements, really different. The key word, Ryan, is differentiation. Really differentiating all these movements. And so to come back to the simplicity of Feldenkrais, it uses movement, awareness of movement to improve function. It can improve neurology. It can recover stroke, back pain, our ability to move easier, athletics. One of my best friends is like one of the highest sports performance coaches with alpine downhill skiing, and he blends Feldenkrais in, and he basically, the top skier in the world is because of him. Right? The skier is good too, but this guy has been getting Feldenkraisian principles packed into his training for the last 6 years. Right? Marco Odermatt, he's from Switzerland. So it's like, so this is where I get excited. It's like, here you have high performance stroke where a person can't talk or walk. When a method, quote unquote, can work at that vast spectrum, that shows to me it's like not only genius, but it's like a natural law of human learning. So there's this thinking in my world that, yeah, Feldenkrais was like Einstein in some ways, because he really understood not just, okay, we got to think about this, but we're also looking at all these deep places. So when you understand the depth, you then see a lot of these quote unquote somatic movements that people teach to just get the pelvis moving, for example, and the hips glidey. That's great. But it isn't about movement. It's about how you sense all your faculties in relationship to yourself in action. And if you happen to make your back pain and your knee joints healthier, then great. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, it does, amazingly.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been doing that since 2004. So I literally, when I came back to Canada from Australia, I went back to fitness training, high-level fitness training with skiers and athletes in Whistler, British Columbia. But I was bored. There wasn't any, like I could do it, but I then kept thinking about Feldenkrais. And I remember being in the gym doing like a deadlift or a squat, and I tweaked my back a little bit. And I thought to myself, what happened to those tapes, like those cassette tapes in my move? And I lost them. So at that point, Google was kind of on the scene. And I happened to find a Feldenkrais training that was starting the following year in British Columbia. So that was the next path, was going into that training. It's a 4-year training, about 800 hours over 4 years. And that just shifted everything. Because not only did I see, wow, this is like an art and a science, it shifted my whole system. Like my allergies went away, no more back pain. I realized that all this BS that we're teaching people in the gym world with keeping your core tight and Pilates, and it's just like bad for the system. It's just so much structure and strain. And so that was like revolutionary, and it was hard because like the people that I was working with were athletes who've been taught this is how you get strong. Now you still have to lift weights, and that these athletes have to, but it's like the entryway is a little different into it. So that was awesome. Started working with people, got a private practice going. This was like 2005, 6, 7. And then in 8, it was the summer of 08, and I kept getting these clients who were not getting better with Feldenkrais. So by this time, I'm living in this small 10,000, person town, and I would get all the problem cases. Similar to me, like they would go through all the professionals in town, chiro, massage, physical therapist, and they're like, oh, just send them to Irene. So I would see them because I also worked at the fitness center, so I knew everyone. It was great. But then there was like 3 people that I saw that summer, Ryan, who I could not help. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Yeah, you had an accident, but this is more than just the Feldenkrais, like even with slowing them down. So, long story short, what was going on is they had shock trauma in their tissues, in their bones, in the movement patterns, in their brain. Also, deep early traumas where now I know their system was just so lacking safety that you could feed them anything and nothing was going to stick because they're just literally like a bird that's been injured and can't fly, like just. And so thankfully, one of my Feldenkrais colleagues, who was the assistant at my training, had studied SE with Peter Levine in like the 90s. And she said, "Oh, you should check out this stuff." Like she was just so like whatever, because she wasn't really practicing it herself. I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I did, and then that was like game on. And I looked at his material, and I'm like, I need to learn this. So that was '08, and I think I was in a training down in Southern California by February of 2009. So that's part one. I'll pause and have something to drink.
Wow. Okay. You can see like the chain of events, can't you? Like how you just started to
Yeah.
one thing at a time. And I've never actually experienced Feldenkrais at all. There was one person around me in Newtown in the city that is very well known in this area that does it, and it's just never aligned to be able to match up with this person to be able to do it.
Yeah,
But
fair enough.
I'm really interested in wanting to go and give it a go and experience it. And I tried to book him once, and she said, "Like, what's going on for you?" And I said, "Nothing's necessarily going on." I said, I want to
Yeah.
experience this." And she's like,
Yeah.
"Okay, okay, yeah." So,
You're weird.
yeah,
Yeah, I think I might, I don't know the name, but I know that there's a couple people in Sydney area that what's interesting, like this is a bit more history. So when Feldenkrais died, he had kind of anointed a select group of people to continue to train. And it was complete honor system. There was no testing, no training. And one of them I think he's still alive. Frank Wildman was his name, and he's American, but he hightailed it to Australia to try to like conquer that continent. And this is that example of, here's this amazing body of work. The founder just passed, and rather than those people trying to, come together in that moment, everybody just scattered like cockroaches. And so because of that, it did get installed in Australia, but it kind of in a strange way. So there's some folks there that are really solid because of that lineage that Frank brought there. But what I've seen is there's not many Feldenkrais trainings that you can find. And the people that trained me are like in their 70s and 80s and even 90s. And nobody's wanting to train in the work because they've made it so rigorous, next to impossible. So like SE is a totally different beast to get to that. But with Feldenkrais, they've made it so impossible that nobody can devote their life to what you need to go through to become a trainer. Anyway, that's like a bit of a sidebar. But I would recommend it if you can get in. It's wonderful work,
yeah,
especially the hands-on component.
beautiful.
Yeah. So anyway, so into my SE training in '09, and then that was just like the opening of all the things I had no idea I had stored in my system.
Yeah,
So I went into that training wanting to help my practice. So usually nowadays, people study SE because it helped them. And so they're like, I need to study this so I can do this, which I don't think is always the best reason that someone should study it, but that's another story. So I went in like, I need to figure out how to work with these nervous systems that are frozen, shut down, terrified, locked in just survival stress. And so loved it. It was so easy for me to take it in. I was never confused, but I think I know it was because my body work background. I understood anatomy, physiology at the core level. And I was often in trainings, mainly with psychotherapists, who don't understand, heart rate variability and where the bones are and all the, and I studied a lot of, I did a lot of acupuncture and a lot of Chinese medicine and all these things when I was trying to help my system heal from all the inflammation. So I understood meridian lines and, that's the liver point and that's the gallbladder point, and I understood chakras. I was open to all that stuff. So when you know a lot about Peter, like he's not just the biophysicist, he's very shamanic in how he works. And he understands all the anatomy, right? At a deep level. And so it just was so cool. But then in our practice sessions in training, that is when my system blew open too fast, too soon. And to shorten the story, I was basically within 2 years covered in what looked like second-degree burns, just rashes head to toe from the chemical trauma I had endured as an infant, in utero, as a child, as a teenager, but also transgenerationally through my mom. She grew up in the Philippines. She's Filipino. And when she was at university in Manila, they would spray their dorm rooms with DDT. So that was, me as little egg Irene, these imprints, as we know, get passed, that chemical gets passed.
Why would they do that? Why would they do that? What was the reason?
Malaria,
Oh, okay, right.
bugs. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Wild.
Bugs, cockroaches, centipedes, a tropical climate without proper,
Mm.
you know? So, so that's a whole other story. Working through that was hell. Obviously, I'm clear of it, but it took a lot of detoxing, healing work, body work, understanding even what that was. It wasn't until about 2016, this was in 2009 and 10, that my trainers, Kathy Kane and Steve Terrell, who work with early trauma, they looked at some of the photos of me in 2010 and they're like, that's chemical trauma. That's fluid trauma. It's not just eczema or psoriasis. It's not because my gut was off. It was like oozing out. So that was kind of like not expected. I didn't think that that was going to occur. The other thing that occurred is because of all my surgeries, I had a lot of medical trauma, a lot of anesthesia stuff that was floating in my system that I had no clue, no clue. And then because I was a hardcore athlete, I can't tell you how many times I've concussed myself, whiplashes from figure skating, skiing. And so as my body started to unfreeze, just pains, fascial pain that made no sense, excruciating headaches, dizziness, tinnitus. If I had gone to a normal doctor, I would have been diagnosed with all the fucking things. Rheumatoid, lupus, probably thyroid condition, definitely would have, the skin conditions, vertigo, fibromyalgia. So anyway, that was like a very interesting segment of that career in
Can I ask,
learning.
can I ask you there, Irene? So
Yeah.
when you went into working with Levine and then you started to realize all this stuff was stored in your system,
Yeah.
as this was unraveling and you was, I guess, finding some form of safety in your system for the first time, was that where this stuff all started to come up to the surface then because now it was allowed to actually come through your body?
No. No, it was a very specific moment actually. I was in a triad in my SE session, in my SE training. And by the way, like before this moment in 09, 2010, I had had, eczema flares. Like I just thought, oh, I just have eczema. It's just, how same way I have allergies. And they kind of put kids in that section of, oh, they have allergies and eczema. It's just, we know a lot more about that now, but I just thought this is just my system. And so so I'm sitting doing this triad with two of my peers and an assistant, and the topic of the day, this is in the SE training, was we had to focus on horror. So something horrific. And I mean, at the time, I'm like, oh, I don't have anything. There's nothing I have here. I've never seen a dead body. I've never had a parent die. I've never seen a terrible accident. I mean, I've had accidents, but that doesn't count. And so, I went with it. I was all open for every lesson in that training. And so I'm sitting there in my chair and I'm just like, okay, horror. I'm like literally like a Ouija board, like trying to bring it into my body. And I'm just feeling everything I know from my Feldenkrais work allow me to go to this. And I started to find I started to turn to my right. And my hands started to go in this really, I'll raise them for the video, interesting position, like down by my waist. And I started to like hunch over. And this is like incomplete procedural memory 101 coming out, right? But I didn't know it at the time. And as soon as I got into this position, Ryan, I went, oh my God. And it was like shock came through my eyes, pain, terror, grief, sadness, and anger. It's like it was everything. And what that position was the way I would hold animals down at the treatment table at the animal hospital, which was a standing table, when we would either put animals under for surgery, or what else do you do at animal hospitals? Euthanize, to put them to sleep. I don't know how many, like thousands, Ryan. From as soon as I was tall enough to stand at that table as a kid, that was one of my jobs after school and on Saturdays. So, as you can imagine, never having considered that maybe was not something a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old should be doing, it's like it literally was like cracked my system open. And my colleagues, my two peers and the assistant, their eyes were just like, what happened to you? And it never even occurred to me but here's what's interesting. That we could say those experiences also taught me how to really sense into another mammal, fear, pain. I mean, there were some animals I'm like, you need to be put down, right? And the feeling when you're holding a vessel of an animal and then everything goes limp. I'm not sure if you've ever had to put an animal down and you're with them, like everything leaves. And of course, at the time, no one has ever taught me how to like protect my freaking energy. So you've got the energies of all these. It's as if in that moment in that training, every single soul, every single terror that I had held. And like what would happen is when you're in those positions, because we wouldn't wear gloves or anything, I'll have like a pinky finger, like soothing the back end of the dog, just like, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, and some of them were just terrified. Others are like, I still have scars on my hands from cat scratches. And so it's kind of like that was hard, but it also was important. And then the meaning of that, which is a big part of us healing our stuff, is going, wow, that's why I'm so able to work with humans, because I was trained so young to feel all that stuff. So that was like, yeah, that was like ground zero. While my patella fracture and all that stuff was important, this was like, I'll never forget that day.
Look at all the perfect synchronicities. Like it's like Irene, you had your blueprint to come down and it was to experience this work.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't look like there was another way. Actually, there would have been. You could have gone to the doctors and you could have gone down that route. But I think you would eventually come this way. You would have veered that way at some point.
I think so. I mean, there's, my students often ask if you could like go and, people ask you those questions, if you could go back and do anything differently. It's like, I
Yeah.
hate that question. It's like, I could assume, but this is what happened. So why don't we just learn from this story and call it a day? Right. But, so that occurred. But then the interesting thing is that right after that, and I've spoken about this before, I went into an advanced training with Peter doing what we call eye of the needle work, which is working with anesthesia, near-death states, and surgical trauma. And I was a demo for that class, and I should not have been on that stage. I had just finished there was another training we had just finished where all my knee surgery trauma came up. I hadn't, the concept of integration was never talked to us. Like nobody ever mentioned it in our trainings, right? Like what's that? You mean I should probably go home and get some body work and resource? It was never taught to us. And so, or if it was, I missed that, but I'm pretty good at tracking things. And so I went into this demo, and this is, one could say it wasn't Peter's fault, but, he did too much. His assistant called that out years later when I was talking to Justin about it. And he's like, yeah, I've seen Peter do 2 sessions because he used to record all of Peter's sessions. And there were 2 sessions where I wanted to come up to him and hit him on the head with a hammer. And one was this one guy and the other was yours. And I don't blame him at all, by the way, just for the record. I think I needed to experience that to realize how important it is when I'm training my students, whether just those who are there to learn from me as a general layperson or someone who's training to work with others, never underestimate the power of going so fucking slow. And I'm a testament to that. Because the moment that got opened up, I remember driving back to Canada on the I-5, and I literally was watching rashes come out of my body. Within hours, they were like forming. I get shivers even thinking about it right now, and I had no clue what I was dealing with. And no one was really there to support it. It was just kind of like, and here's the thing is like, now I know, and you might know this through your own healing, we don't know what might come up or out when we start to work at these deep levels. Because when you factor in our current life, but also the things that our parents have forgotten, maybe our parents aren't around, we don't talk to them, but then also the transgenerational aspect, there is a lot that humans can handle and cope with. And we have never been at a point in history where people are working at these deep levels. And so, that's my way of saying, yeah, you can do so much healing. I'm a testament to this. I know you are as well, but you got to take it slow, because I actually think, Ryan, if I had had a little more time in those, it was only 2 years that I did my SE training, and then I just went right into master classes. If I had had a little bit more time and been given, say, a course like mine, like just do some of these basics, do some Qigong, do some lymph work, do some detox work, get your feet on the ground. I do think that it would have been slightly different, but I also think I was supposed to have this happen to come back and tell the tale and be like, yeah, you don't want to do that. You can go do it. If you want to do it, that's fine, but just here's my story, and then maybe think about it for a week.
For sure. What I'm hearing here is like titration, and I'm surprised that there was no resourcing. There was no like orientation. There was nothing along those lines there for you for that. Even at the advanced level of the training, maybe that's changed now. I don't know, but
Well, I'm going to say something that's separate to this, right? Because I know that the assistants there really did care for me, because I found out after the fact that there was like an ongoing conversation leading up to that, whether or not I should be a demo. So it was being discussed. Now, here's what's interesting. One of the things I learned from Kathy Kane, if you're working with a person one-on-one and you start to think in your head, I don't know if I should do this, what's the answer? You probably shouldn't do it. And so one could say they should have known that if they started to question my suitability for that demo, they should have said, But here's the thing, they need a demo. Where are they going to find someone with, at that point, 5 anesthesias, surgeries, and these traumas? Like, it's not that hard to, in the training setting.
I'd say it's quite hard to find probably people that have experienced that
Yeah.
from a young age, and in utero, you've experienced that through your mum's hands, right?
Yeah, and we weren't even working with chemical trauma. It was just surgery and anesthesia.
Mm.
But and then within the SE community, right? So you're also pulling from a pool of people that are very specified. So, but the one thing that's important to understand, why aren't they titrating and going more slow? And this is kind of something that I'm really passionate about. All the trainings are entrepreneurial. I'm a businesswoman. I understand you need to pay your staff. You need to pay the venue for their things. You need to pay for insurance. Like all the things that go into producing a live event is high cost. And so the moment you do not have subsidy, because you think about it, I always go back again to medicine, medical environments. Universities run, yes, from tuition, but also massive endowments from donors, just like hospitals. You go into a hospital, all those names are on the board of people who donate money. That does not happen in our trainings. You need to get students in to pay for it to happen. And if that continues, I don't think we're going to see this work come to be a full profession, because then you are beholden to people in your seats. You have to get people, even if they're not quite right, we'll just let them in. And I've seen the after effect of that, where people who probably shouldn't be there end up not doing so well, or they end up holding things back because they just shouldn't be there. So I commiserate with my colleagues who need to make a living, but the thing is until we can really get massive funding, and we also know that's not going to come through research, because our work cannot be researched in the typical academic sense. I've done one research study in a neuroscience lab, and it was great. We got good results, but that's like one little study, right? So it's sort of, I don't know if that makes sense, because a lot of people never think about that. Like, oh, you're right. You're right. They are entrepreneurial. And what did we just see the last few years with COVID? Everything's online. What does that mean? Costs go down. We can run more trainings. And so now we have so many people who have the first, let's say, 2 levels of SE on their belt, under their belt, which is only 12 days. That's it. Because they can attend online trainings. But man, I mean, you do podcasts online. When you meet someone and do a podcast, it's completely different, right? You can still do so much online, but there's something that has occurred in the last 5 years, 4 years, where that rigor of someone having to pack up and go somewhere, it changes it. Like, you need to have investment to get on a plane and go somewhere to learn from a teacher. When it's online, I can just pop on, I'll just turn off my video, no big deal, while I like knit. Nothing against knitting, but if people are not fully engaged, they're not getting the information in. I mean, you know what it's like to multitask when
Yeah, I
you're
don't.
online. It's so that I'll just pause, because that was like a bit of a, again, sidetrack from my journey.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm sure it can go a lot deeper. While I've got you here, Irene, I really want to ask you a couple of things that
Yeah.
I think I've heard you talk to. And for anyone listening still, yeah, definitely check out Irene's YouTube. You've got a fountain of
Mm,
content on there that you've been doing for years, really. This
yeah.
isn't even the famous backdrop that I've normally seen in your work. This is not
This,
I swear it's a different, it looks different.
it is. Yeah, we moved 2 years ago.
Ah, okay,
So
okay.
the old backdrop is just kind of a white wall with a
Yeah,
plant, a
yeah.
printer, I think.
That's it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because when you've been like, I don't know, always been interested in it and been very curious about the work, and I feel like you're one of those polymaths in that area where you've dipped your toe into so many different fields of it. So sidestep, definitely check out Irene's YouTube for
Thank
all of
you.
that stuff. But what I really wanted to talk to as well, and something I've heard you talk about on your channels, is you know, this seemed to be obsession in the spiritual world, or even just in the healing world of going in to do plant medicines and ayahuasca and psilocybin. And I work with a lot of people that have gone to Peru
Hmm.
and come back. I've had I've had people that I work with where their partners have died, had heart attacks, etc. But they come back and there's no integration, there's no anything else, and their nervous systems and their bodies and are trying to go through all of this change and this stuff going on. And I'd love to hear your take
Hmm.
on this and your area about this area.
Yeah. Well, this is a hot topic right now, I think. I know it is because when I tried to talk about it maybe 3, 4 years ago, I interviewed a gentle young man who had a horrific ayahuasca experience. His interviews on our site, on the YouTube channel called, he's Juan Pablo is his name. It's amazing he's still alive. Like he had a full-on psychotic break. His story is there, so it's worth listening to. So here's what's interesting. This is just where we're at right now, I think, in the zeitgeist of this world is when I released that 3 years ago, there was not a lot, well, there was, let's be honest, there was a lot of people blaming him. Oh, he just wasn't ready. He wasn't ready enough. This stuff is supposed to show all your demons or oh,
Yeah, all the gaslighting. Yeah.
it was just so gaslight lit. And then, oh, Irene, why don't you have some people on who've had positive experiences? I'm like, well, where are they? Nobody's coming to me. And so we released this again, the same interview. I think it was in December, just this last year, 2024. It was reversed, Ryan. The amount of stories that people were sharing about similar experiences, or partners having similar experiences, friends, and them never being the same since. It just is like, okay, people just weren't like, not enough people had gone through, sadly, that ringer. I just actually listened to a great talk. Do you know Joel and Yerasimos here for the Truth podcast? I'll have to connect you guys because they just had Amber Lee Sky. She's a woman. She's JP Sears' ex-wife, if you know who that is. So she's in the Austin, Texas world, which is kind of like the hub of that area. But her story is crazy because she was leading medicine retreats for a long, long time in Costa Rica. I recommend people listen to that because she goes down the dark piece, but she also talks about, yeah, there were some really transformative things that occurred with some of the people. But to go back to your question or your note about integration, here's my, I don't know if it's issue, but here's the thing that people have to realize. Most people are living with some form of pretty severe dysregulation, even if they don't have a medical health problem. It could be hidden still, like it was in me. I was friggin' functional when this stuff started to come out of my system. I was not depressed. I wasn't living in a closet. I was very accomplished. I had good relationships, all these things. So I wasn't someone who was like already tattered and broken down. So there's a lot of people living in that kind of functional freeze, which is a very new term, but it's an important term. It's where our window of tolerance is false. We think we're pretty hot shit, but we're actually not. We're on this very fine line of regulation, if none at all, really. So then you add in this strong, powerful earth medicine that doesn't understand human civilization, industrialization, domestication of plants and animals. It just is like from the earth. It's earth medicine. Maybe it's from another galaxy, who knows, but it's powerful. And so you give it to someone who seemingly looks fine and it will crack open so much stuff. If that person has never even considered that they have a pelvis, or that they have adrenals, or that they have anger, or that they have animal characteristics that could kill if threatened. Like, I mean, I could just list these things. Most people don't realize that. They don't even know where their bloody spleen is. So how are they, they're not going to know all these sensations that start coming up. If you were raised in an environment where you had to scrutinize everything around you and compartmentalize your thinking and your thoughts and your authenticity due to, say, an environment that wasn't safe, and you think you're fine and you don't know that you've held all that emotional tone, pain, grief, and you're just living a personality, this will crack you open. And this is why people go crazy. They go psychotic. They get possessed. They get an autoimmune flare. They can't sleep for months, years, right? We've heard this with people who have really bad LSD trips, for example. Even marijuana, I know of people who will have a smoke and they'll just never be the same ever again. So why am I saying that? I'm saying that because they talk about before you go into these sits, you got to clean your diet. I think it's like no meat, no alcohol, no drugs, cleanse your body, detox. I'm like, okay, that's great, whatever. But what I don't think they're doing is teaching people for a year how to be able to track interoceptive sense and stay connected and grounded and tethered to the here and now. Because what can happen is you go into these states, you fracture, and it's like you're having a near-death experience. And that can be really scary. So that's kind of my, quick breakdown of where I see the biggest problems is going in before you've done some foundational work that is nervous system or somatic or emotional based. And here's the thing. I've seen this when people get into that work at that basic level, they don't need it often. They don't need another thing to poke because there's so much material to work with,
Oh, but we want it quick. We want it
I
quick.
know,
We want that supplement that's going to heal everything, and we never have to do anything ever again. So that's,
I understand.
that's where it comes from, isn't it? It's we hear these things, and there's Netflix documentaries about this stuff that people have
Yeah,
these miraculous healings, and you
sure.
go there and you go pop over to Peru. It's this simple process. You just go in and drink this drink, and then now you're healed for the rest of your life, and all of your cancer is cured, and all of your autoimmune is cured, and all of this stuff. But it doesn't talk about anything on the depth of like, can you handle this? Like,
Yeah.
what is this
Yeah.
thing you're going to experience? And there are, and also it's a very the people that are grown up ancestrally from their culture are grown up
Yeah.
on this again. They
Yes.
are they are taught this stuff from a really young age. They are taught the way of the land and the earth and everything
Hmm.
around them. They are taught it through their lineage, and we have a big disconnect with that. So you're coming from Western culture, coming out of a city, jumping into the forest, and then all of a sudden drinking this drink from the earth, going to different galaxies, having a near-death, ego-death experience, and then all of a sudden, your whole system has just popped open, and you have no idea about regulation because, like you said, you're in this functional freeze type sort of response.
It's
But
incredibly disorienting, is what I would say, right? It's I like analogies. So this is the analogy that popped into my brain when you were talking. People that live in, say, the Himalaya, the Sherpas, the natives to, say, Nepal and northern India, they can climb those mountains with no problem, right? Because they're used to that high altitude. If we go there, it takes us weeks to acclimatize to that altitude. It's the same thing. It's different, but it's still the same. And so, if someone has never even considered that there's maybe multiverses out there with other beings, and that's impossible, and then all of a sudden you get opened up and you see these things that don't make any sense. If you've never contemplated that, doesn't mean you have to believe in it, but like there's so much that can funnel in that's not even worldly, and that can really fracture a person's understanding of what humans are, and it can be really destabilizing. And so, we have to still live it's not going to be worthwhile if you come back from one of these amazing retreats and you can't, feed your kids and go to work and make
Hmm.
money to like keep things going. It's anyway, so yes, I think and I know there's miracle stories. I do know that these things can happen, but I think they're far and few in between, and we're going to see more and more of this industry. Isn't that funny? I just had to say that. Industry, like I'm already seeing it crumble, Ryan, and I just think I hope people are going to go back to just the basics and see that that can offer so much more, and at the pace that the system can handle it. Because we cannot forget we have this physiology that has to keep up with the openings of what we see.
Mm. Where do you think people are going wrong with nervous system regulation in the nervous system regulation world?
They're thinking that being dysregulated is like a medical condition that they have to fix. And I think that's where the quick fix and the biohacks have inserted, because what is presenting for many people is a medical condition. What we would call fibro, IBS, Crohn's, migraine, severe PMS, anxiety disorders, PTSD, you name it. They're medicalized concepts. And so let's just fix it with some techniques, some tools. But most of the time, and I'm generalizing here, a person ends up with that level of dysregulation because of what occurred to them or did not occur to them when they were young. This comes back to the ACE study, the Adverse Childhood Experiences study, which is pretty solid science and data. And if you think about what a baby needs, I always go back to the baby. They need connection, care, support, safety, food, shelter, play, movement, sunlight. Like they need the basics of what a garden would need. They need to be tended and nurtured constantly. And so when someone says, so I've got this dysregulation, I've got these conditions, I want to do this list of biohacking things, I say, okay, great. But are you able to connect to your system and feel it while you do those things? It's like when you have a crying baby, you can't just take it and put it into an ice bath. It will shut it up because it'll go into a freeze response. Just like there was a real popular video that was circulating years ago where a gentleman was oming to his newborn.
Yeah, I saw that.
And if you look at that baby, not only is he filming it and it's a show, he's not connecting to her when she's crying. And he's like a loudspeaker, and basically her system is going into what we would call freeze and shutdown. You see it in her eyes go glassy. So I say this, and I'm going to circle back to why I'm saying this. I use voos and ahs and toning in my classes and when I teach people and when I'm in private session. But I'm not just having a person come in and say, okay, I'm going to get you to do this sound. I have to connect with them. I have to watch them. I have to go, oh, just me showing this to them, they're looking afraid. So I'm not going to force them to do it. We use it as a tool for various things. It's not just to tone the vagus nerve. It's not that simple. But we use it to see where someone is at in their regulation. But you couldn't take that to a baby. You just can't. You have to hold them. And maybe they're hungry. Maybe they're hot. Maybe they're afraid. Maybe they don't like the person in the room. Maybe they've got a poopy diaper, and you've got to orient and connect to the needs. You co-regulate with gentleness, kindness. Maybe it's play. And then they feel it. And then that's a little drop in the bucket of co-regulation. And that little drop in the bucket builds self-regulation. And so when we're adults and we didn't get that secure attachment, safety, nurture, the whole cry it out situation where babies are left to cry themselves to sleep. If we were not cared for when we were unwell or feeling in distress, because crying is just distress, it's not the baby trying to be difficult, right? If we weren't met with what we needed as an adult, we got to work with that first. And so the hydrotherapy is great. The Vuing is great. You know, one of my best friends is a Qigong teacher. I teach that in my workshops, the lymph and the touching and the containment and the movement and all great. But it has to have that connection piece in it. So you ask, where are people going wrong? They're treating it like a medical condition that needs to be fixed when really it's a humanitarian issue of just not raising our children well, us not being raised well. And I don't know all of your story, but I've heard little bits, and it sounds like there wasn't total safety around, and so it's like if we simplify it to that, it comes back to restoring that safety. And restoring safety isn't saying to someone, I'm creating a safe space for you. If someone is terrified at the cellular level, you can write that to them in text and in chants for 24 hours a day. They got to work with their kidney adrenals. They have to work with their brainstem. They have to work with the diaphragms that are in shock from whatever abuse they were dosed out. And you can't just go and work that out of the body, because I'm also big into body work, myofascial work, cranial work, osteopathic work. But again, don't just go and get a bunch of Rolfing sessions and think all your trauma is going to go away because your fascia has been released. You have to integrate it, there's that word again, with the feeling, with the memory, with the emotion, with the environment. Otherwise, you're just treating yourself like you're a body bag, a meat suit, as we might say. And we're so much more than that. And so that, again, is another place where I see people are going wrong, is they don't know how to track what's going on in their system when they're getting these things done. Hope that answers that.
Yeah, I'm sure it could go a lot deeper. How can people start to connect with that? Say someone's listening to this, they've never done any type of this work before. How can you start to help them to one little thing that can start to find some sense of interoception, feeling their body? They've never felt their body before. What would you say to someone that's done that?
So two things off the top. We've been talking for just over an hour. In that hour, have you noticed your breath? Have you noticed the pressure of your body on your chair? If you haven't, that's okay. It's not a fault. But that's like basic body awareness 101. Not changing how you're sitting, not changing your breath. Like, oh, that, right. Aren't you supposed to do breath when we're in breathwork class? Like, again, it's like we compartmentalize. Now I'm going to breathe. Now I'm going to be spiritual. Now I'm going to do my workout. So can you just notice those things? And then the other big one, which is going to seem seemingly simple, I call it follow biological impulses. So are you aware of the need to go to the bathroom? Is there pressure in your bladder? Are you holding in gas? Are you thirsty? Are you hungry? Are you eating and you're not hungry? That's a big one for a lot of people. Are you feeling the need to like slow down and rest, but your conditioning and your personality and culture says it's 5 o'clock, I have to start cooking dinner? Right? And so this comes back to those biological imprints of just, this is basic physiology. Animals in the wild don't think about that stuff. They just do it, right? Some animals might burrow before they take a poop, but not everyone. And so then again, there's this issue of like, okay, we've been culturalized, like I got to stay at my desk for this amount of time. I'm going to feel the pressure in my bladder. I really have to go, but I'm going to wait. That is putting your system into survival stress. Now, are you going to die from that? Probably not. But what it will do is it'll also keep your breath tight. It'll cut off other elements of interoception that you might be able to listen to. Right? So there's this ability to like, can you really just follow your impulses for a few weeks, see what happens? Because with that, Those, like, I always point to my core, just all the organs in here, right? Heart, lung, digestion. That's governed by the autonomic nervous system. So if you're paying attention to that, you're also kind of by proxy becoming more cued into your survival physiology.
Mm.
And so they piggyback off of each other. The other one, which is a quick win, this is my classic example. Say you stub your toe on a coffee table, like later. Hope you don't, but let's say you do. Commonly, that happens, or you slam your hand in something like and then you walk and you're pissed and you're holding everything and you just go to the next thing. And then the next time someone talks to you, you snap at them, right? It's like, why is that occurring? Well, that could be for a lot of reasons, but let's just say you stub your toe. The next time you do something like that's minor, not life-threatening, you take a moment to just stand there or you sit and you feel the pain. And what I have found for many of my students is the first time they do that, Ryan, they'll like break down crying.
Mm.
Why? Has nothing to do with the stubbing of the toe. It's the countless other times that they've been hurt, felt a pain, and they've just swept it under the rug, or they've overridden and gone to the next thing. So that's like one real simple way to honor pain and discomfort and feel the sensation. And it starts so young. How many kids fall off their bike, scrape their knee, and the parent says, "You're fine, just get up"? I don't know if you've scraped your knee recently as an adult, but it hurts.
Yeah,
It hurts.
feels. The amount of times you do it as a child and the amount of times you do it as an adult is very far few between.
It is. It is. So, but it's like to say to a little person, this again comes back to how we were treated as children, to say, "Oh, that doesn't hurt, you're fine." Maybe say, "Oh, God, how does that, like, what does it feel like?" Rather than "you're okay" or "you're fine, you're fine, you're fine," like that kind of frantic mother-father energy that then makes the kid more stressed. It's like, get curious. Like, ooh, does it sting? Does it burn? And kids will give you that information. Like, they're so cool, right? They're just, you give them the opportunity, they bring it out. So for adults, because most people listening to this are probably adults, how can you treat yourself with that level of interest and respect? And then watch the emotion and maybe the grief, maybe the anger that starts to come out when you realize, whoa, nobody ever asked me, not just how I felt, but like what was going on in my body. So those are some quick little ones. And of course, that's like the ABCs.
Yes, of course, of course. And I know you
Yeah.
go into a lot more detail on your channel and stuff as well. I want to ask you a more of a personal question here, Irene.
Sure.
How do you find how do you find creating and sharing your content on platforms where you're not able to delve deeper into things? Like you're on YouTube where you can have 20, 30-minute, 45-hour long videos where you're able to express, and we've been talking for an hour and 10, 12 minutes, and we're, I feel like we're still scraping the surface of something. So
Yeah,
it could be a 10-hour chat.
totally. Yeah.
How do you find, in a world of TikToks, 30 seconds, 90 seconds, how do we get people into this work? Because a lot of
Yeah.
my stuff that I share on socials, as you've probably seen, is the stuff that is quick and is easy to get people interested slightly, so that then I
Yep.
can take them into it. And they come into some of my work and they're like, "Oh, this, I thought we were just going to be doing some movement." And I'm like, "Well, no, that got you in. That got you into it. And now we're going to the other stuff." How have
Yeah.
you found that? Talking about orientation or talking about those signals
Mhm.
and safety and interoception and being connected to those, to do that in a 30-second, 90-second video, I find it difficult. So I'm just
Uh-huh.
like, and I'm a little bit more of a rambler. I like to ramble and talk and to digest things. So how have you found doing that
Yeah.
in this fast-paced world?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I used to do a lot more long form content. Like hour and a half. I used to call them special topic lectures. I used to do them once a month. I don't do those as much anymore because I've kind of covered a lot of the big topics that I can get into in an educational format. The other reason, I've just been incredibly busy with training and teaching, so it's just, I'm kind of pooped at the end of the week. I don't want to do another 90-minute thing where I'm talking about the same thing I was just talking about, but at a deeper level. So I do love long form content. I think my longest podcast on a person's show is 3.5 hours, and we could have done more. So you're right. We've just scratched the surface. For me, I have the ability to show Feldenkrais movements, but I know from what I know about it, it won't serve enough of a purpose. And so I've just kind of decided I'm not going to do it. Like there was some, this is just the true nature of it. Like there's a whole bunch of photos we have of me from like 2021, where I'm like, touching myself and doing all these things. And then you look at the photos and you're like, they don't mean anything. It's just me touching my forehead. Like, what is that? And so I kind of, I experimented, and I'm like, I'm not a supermodel, so I don't need to show myself like doing these things. I don't need to be in a white flowy dress because everyone knows I'm a girl. It doesn't matter. And I just stick with education. And every now and again, I might throw a video of me doing something movement based, but it's more of my physical fitness stuff that I will share just because it shows like, hey guys, I was told I shouldn't even be able to walk 25 years ago, and I can still like jump and run and all these things. Like there's something to this. So I put that out. But yeah, I just kind of keep to the education.
Yeah.
I really love, I love cinema and movies, really deep series that get into like stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'll often share, copyright infringement, of course, but I'll share like little clips of movies and shows. We're about to do one where we're going to break down a scene from Good Will Hunting with Matt Damon and Robin Williams, where he's basically pushing Damon to like break down.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, that has a little bit more of a connection to like the visual arts.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. But then we've just finished a 10-month training, and there was some beautiful images and video we caught from students doing Feldenkrais, doing kind of theater games, sitting around and then you see it, but it's like it's an action, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I just came off a retreat where we had 120 odd men at the weekend, and it was
Wow. Oh, I think I saw that on your stories. Yeah.
being able to get some of these men to just slow down and, really simple stuff of just 3 movements of Qigong, just to be able to slow enough just to feel your feet and the balls of your feet on the floor, and how some of them were just crying from that, right? And some of these men have not been feeling their bodies, and they've been at all. And it's
So
a
good.
really, really big, it was a really, really big weekend. It just big
That's
holding,
amazing.
big holding. But series that I've been watching, The Handmaid's Tale. Have you seen The
Oh my
Handmaid's
God. I started that last 2 years ago, and I was like, okay, I see the purpose. I might come back to it.
A bit intense.
It's intense. To me, Hunger Games was intense. So like that was,
Yeah.
so the dystopian nature of that. I like it. The art is great, but yeah, I'm like, I need something funner right now after
Yeah.
talking about trauma all day long.
The reason I shared that to
Yeah,
you,
tell me.
the reason I shared that to you is because just something as simple as we watch TV. A lot of people watch TV to get away from life, right? And we get away from our bodies. Is there something that we can do to start to connect with our bodies, to be like, actually, what am I watching right now, and why? How is that affecting my body and my physiology?
Yeah.
Because some people that I have people around me that will watch horror and will watch those type of things, and I'm like, I'm always curious to like, what's going on in
Oh, I
your
have an answer
system?
for that.
Yeah, so please,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, so from what I can tell, I think one of the reasons, and this is not going to be right for everyone, but the reason some people are so fascinated with horror, and I've noticed recently more people are getting interested in horror. I've just noticed that trend.
Mm,
I think it's because somewhere in their system, they know that in order to live in this world, in all of its nature of good and bad and evil, they have to connect with horror. And for them, they're not ready yet to connect with horror internally, but they can watch it on the outside. Just like my story, it was horror that unearthed that incomplete, that massive shock in my system. I do feel that if we don't get comfortable with the horror of humanity, it's going to be really hard to clean up the stuff we've created. Now, this does not mean that we don't also resource to all the good, amazing things. It's this yin and yang, right? All the elements. It's the fire, it's the water, it's the earth, it's the wind, it's the ether. We have to have all of it. We can't just, I just want water. We know what happens with that. Or I'm only earth. You can't budge me, right? I'm just always it's like there has to be a blend of all of it. And so this is what I've seen in some of my colleagues, friends who I have found don't want to look at the bad stuff that's happening. But I'm also like, don't go down rabbit holes to the point where you're not able to function in conspiracy. I get that too. But it's like there's like a little healthy dose of this is a shit show that's going on out there. I'm not going to focus on it. I'm still going to do my work. But I do think horror movies are like a bridge to experience the own horror in ourselves that we can't yet touch into. I think it's also why a lot of people love action movies because it's allowing that fight, right? Like like suspense, and I mean look at this like person flying through the air and parachuting and like all these things. Like it's fun. It gives us that sympathetic charge. And then of course, so yeah, I think there's something really interesting there. I'm glad you asked that question.
well, it sounds like to me, like what I'm hearing is that it's what people most likely tend to watch more often. It's an expression of what's going on and they're not able to connect within their own systems. For
Yeah.
me, I like when I'm feeling a
Yeah,
little
what do
bit
you like?
shut down. When I'm feeling a little bit
Yeah.
shut down, I watch TV series like The Nanny from like the 90s and stuff. Like, because it makes me laugh.
Yes.
It makes me
Yeah.
really laugh, and
Yeah.
it helps me to connect with the joy that I'm shut down from feeling.
It's so
But I
good.
was just interested to like
Yeah.
I wonder how people connect with their bodies while while they're watching these things. Because I don't connect with my body when I'm doom scrolling on social media at all. Like I am not connected to my sense of self at all when I'm doing that.
Yeah. It's
That's
it's
why
a tricky one.
I have to
Yeah.
lock it away. I have to
Yeah.
have that
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, I think no, it's interesting though, because my husband actually talks about the movie thing, the show thing a lot. He had a way more traumatic upbringing than me, really unsafe environment, physical abuse, all that kind of thing. And like his favorite series is The West Wing, which is an Aaron Sorkin show from like the
Yeah,
90s.
yeah.
And he has seen every single episode like probably 30 times. I might even be undershooting that. And I've watched it, and I actually every now and again I'll watch it because it's kind of fun and it's quirky, and the characters are just old school TV, and there's no cell phones, and it's like that world before what occurred in the last kind of 20 years. Like it's very different. But the one thing I will say about feeling the body, I used to, because of my functional freeze, I used to watch things and not feel. Now I am tuning in. And I will know if I should turn something off if I start to feel sympathetic energy in my legs.
So that sort of
Buzz.
yeah, yeah.
And usually it's the buzz of you should be going to bed. Do not start. Do not start another episode at 11:30 at night, Irene. Whereas before I would push that, and I did that in my earlier years of building my business. I would, be up till 2 in the morning writing because I was just not connected to I was connected, but I was really good at overriding
Yeah.
to get stuff done. And I'm glad I did it because I created a lot of stuff, but I can't do that anymore.
Yeah. Stop calling me out there, Irene. Stop calling me.
Haha. I didn't say anything.
With your husband as well, is there like, there's a sense of when I was going through my really difficult times that took me to what I'm doing now, I
Yeah.
would watch, Harry Potter's, I would watch
Huh?
Lord of the Rings, I would watch The
Yeah.
Hobbit, I would watch the things that I grew up on, that I found calming and relaxing to my system because they were familiar.
Yep, that's it.
And I could know I didn't have to watch it. A new film is always it's new. It's
It's
unknown.
unpredictable.
There's unpredictability, right? But even if you're watching The West Wing and you know every single episode, guess what? You know what's going to come and what's going to happen.
Safe.
So his system feels safe, relaxed,
Yeah.
and open with just having that. Is that
Yeah.
what we're referring to here?
Exactly. 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 Yeah. I would say that that's it. It's like listening to your favorite song. Like there's all this music in the world. And I always go back to Faith, George Michael. Like,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah.
It's like, or Soundgarden or Pearl Jam or something that was like in that zone when I was just, life was simpler when I was 18, right? I think that's why we tend to listen to the music that we grew up with. I mean, kudos to the people that find new music genres and all that. It's like it's hard to break out of what you're familiar with.
Yeah, I mean, Irene, what year was sort of you? What was you growing up in? What 80s, 90s?
I am born in 1975, so I'll be 50 this
1905.
year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So I was graduating when we called it the Seattle Sound. So Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Soundgarden were like Alice in Chains was big. And then of course the Beastie Boys.
Yeah.
All of the Beastie Boys.
Our generation of we're actually better at listening to genres because we had radio. We didn't have Spotify. We didn't have those things. We had to wait for our song to come on and wait for it to enjoy it. So we had to listen to rock,
Yep.
to pop, to
Yeah.
these different genres. Whereas now,
Yeah.
like I listen to, some of my nephews and stuff, they just click to what they want. So they don't actually have a diverse library of different music tastes. They
No.
just have their one music taste that they like. Whereas we grew up, I had to watch, TV adverts. I had to wait for my show to come
To
on.
come on.
You know,
How old
like,
what vintage are you?
say again.
How old are you, if I may ask?
I grew up in the 80s, so like I grew up
Okay.
in the late 80s. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That similar. So no, it is different. I mean, I think, there's something to be said about trying to pace ourselves with how we take in information and entertainment. That's the other thing right now. We didn't get all the news that we get back in, like you got news, but it came in at a slower pace. And now, like, it's just one, even if you're not looking for it, it still lands in front of you, right? It is an interesting piece with the nervous system. And yeah, the doom scrolling thing is interesting. I'm glad you mentioned that because I can honestly say that's one thing I don't fall into. But
Great.
sometimes I do, and when I do, I like get contorted into this posture, and it's the somatic sense. I'm like, what? And it's like I crack myself out of a coffin. But you see it in people walking around, the posture, it's the posture of being hunched over on this thing. And if you're not connected to your breath and your diaphragms, you have no clue that you're collapsing all of
Mm,
that.
mm,
So
yeah,
yeah, we're in a very interesting time.
yeah, for sure. I've got a couple of questions here
Yeah.
from some people in my community,
Ooh,
and
okay.
Denise asked, can you speak to HRV? I use a Fitbit to track mine, and it varies between 5 to 37 ms and is on average 18. This seems very, very poor, and I'm right. Am I right? I have noticed that as my health has been improving, I live with multiple complex medical conditions. It has
Hmm.
trended upwards, but in the earlier days, it was consistently around 9 to 11. I'm wondering how much weight to put in this, and also if you can share anything else valuable around it. Thanks.
So I'm going to be the first to say I don't follow numbers like HRV. I know what heart rate variability is. I would say the most important thing, what was her name?
Denise.
Denise. The most important thing, Denise, is how are all your other systems doing? So I'm going to use my hands now just as a quick depiction. So I always think of our health, our nervous system health, like a bunch of balls like lined up that are separate: cardio, respiratory, gut, immune, hormones, all the things, connection. And when we're working at improving our nervous system physiology, our somatic capacity, we want all these balls to move forward together. So if your symptoms are shifting and your gut's getting a little bit better, and I don't mean by no means mean like perfect, but like you're noticing these little changes across all the board, that's good. If, on the other hand, all of a sudden one day you're like, whoa, I have so much energy. Where does this, like, wow, I'm going to go ahead and do all this movement. I'm going to do all the things I need to do, clean the house. I hear this a lot with women. It's just very typical, right? Got kids. I've done all the things at the house. I've cooked, I've cleaned, I've done my work, my real work, and I've done all these amazing things. And I bake cookies. It's like I have all this energy. And then the next day, all the other systems have fallen back. That's not good. And to go back to what you were mentioning about people go to these ceremonies and retreats and they come back all supercharged like they're Superman or Superwoman. They're like, I'm going to do all this, but it's like survival based. So for me, yes, we want heart rate variability. To me, that means there's a real window of tolerance occurring at the autonomic nervous system level into all the branches of the polyvagal aspects and the sympathetic fight flight nervous system, which we need. But the question is, how are the overall functions of your body? And one of the most important parts of nervous system physiology is connection to others and the desire to be in the world, right? So it's not enough to just have perfect digestion and immune system health, but not have any interest in humanity, right? So that's my like tennis ball example of like, can all these things move forward at the same time? Or if there's one big improvement, don't do any more. Wait for the other things to catch up.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, anyway, I just want to say thank you so much for today. I felt like, honestly, like I said, I could have carried on speaking to you for another few hours. Maybe we need
We'll
a
do it.
part two, part three, part four, part five.
Let's do it.
But thank you so much for, like, I want to deeply thank you from my heart for all of the work you put out there. It's, like I said, I've been watching your stuff for such a long time,
Thank
and I
you.
think it's of real value. But for anyone else listening to this, where can they connect with you? Where can they hear more of your work? What are there things that they can do more stuff with you, or training, or anything along those lines?
Just my name, just Irene Lyon, no S, .com. That is my main hub. YouTube is there, of course, Instagram, I'm on those feeds, Facebook kind of. And then when you go to that hub, you will find maybe too many things that you can go through. We've been told people get overwhelmed, so we're trying to, cull that down. But there are free resources. I would say one of the better trainings I have that's quite old now, but it's still 100% accurate, is a 3-part healing trauma series. It's video, it gets into analogies, some of the science, and that is in service of teaching people about my online program. So that's the main way that you work with me now. It's not one-on-one. I don't have a private practice anymore. My group stuff in person is limited to those I'm training currently. So for the person who just wants to heal and learn about their nervous system and really rewire this level of dysregulation that many of us have, it would be my 2 online courses. So one is the 21-day nervous system tune-up, and the other is Smart Body, Smart Mind, SBSM is the course that we just put through a rigorous scientific study. So for those that want some of that legitimacy, we did it and there were positive results, which is cool. So, I'm still trying to play in that game a little bit to give that evidence-based, statistical element. But we've been running that course. It'll be the 18th time coming up in September 2025. So it has stood the test of time. It is the first online course that existed for healing trauma at the nervous system level, and it combines Peter's work, Kathy Kane and Stephen Terrell's work, and the Feldenkrais work. The Feldenkrais work is honestly, Ryan, it's the glue that puts the other stuff together. And that, I think, is where there's something very special about some of the lessons, because it's got the Feldenkrais magic with Peter's brilliance and then the early trauma pieces wrapped in. Yeah.
Wonderful.
That's everything. Yeah.
So Irene, I asked each guest to give a question for the next guest. And the question I've got for you from the last guest was, what's something you can't live without in your day? Like, what's something you have to do in your day that you can't live without?
We're talking not just basic needs like water.
Anything. Yeah.
Anything.
Anything. I'm guessing is what they're asking.
I need to be outside.
Fresh
air.
Why is that important to you to be outside?
Earth energy, the ground, electrons, sky, clouds, rain. I really struggle if I have to be in a hotel that doesn't have a window. And it's darn expensive to get hotel rooms with balconies, let me tell you. So, yeah, being outside is incredibly important to me. I grew up in the woods and the outdoors. And so that would be like, if we put water and food aside, that would be it.
Yeah, if you break down the word forest, it's for rest, right? So there we go.
There you go.
What would you
Thanks
like
for that
to ask?
question.
What would you like to ask the next guest? Anything you want. You don't know who it is, so that's even
I
better.
don't.
Yeah.
What's one thing that you do that's so silly
Okay, beautiful.
and you just love it?
Yeah. What's one thing you do
It's so silly
that's so silly? Yeah. I
and you
love
just
that
love
question.
it.
I love that. Yeah, we asked Peter Crone who would be on his table. He could pick anyone could be on his table, like celebrity or past or non-past, something like that. So, yeah.
And who was it?
It was like a mixture of his family and his mum,
Okay.
his dad, and things like that, and some teachers and stuff, gurus that he listened to and stuff like that. So I
Well, that's
always love
fun.
these. I love these questions because they're not from me.
No,
So
that's great. That's a great
thank-
little twist. Love it.
thanks so much, Irene. Beautiful.
You are welcome. Thanks, Ryan. Bye.
Cheers.